Hey everyone, it's Andrew Klavan with this week's interview with Miranda Devine. I'm sure you all know her. She's a New York Post columnist, Fox News contributor, and she wrote the bestseller Laptop from Hell, which you can guess what that was about. And she now has a new book called The Big Guy, How a President and His Son Sold Out America. Miranda, it's good to see you. I know you're talking on your phone.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you so much for having me on. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you. You know, you start out, this has been driving me a little bit crazy, the continual narrative in the media that there is no evidence that Joe Biden participated in the shenanigans of Hunter Biden. Your book not only exposes that, but exposes what you call a conspiracy by the FBI, CIA, State Department, and the Department of Justice and the IRS to cover all this up. So let's begin with what Joe Biden was doing and what he was doing it for a long time, right? This is before he became vice president.
Yes. Look, that was what the Laptop from Hell was about. It was really about Biden corruption. The family of Joe Biden were operating this influence peddling scheme. Joe Biden was doing this back in Delaware and from his earliest days, his very long, half-century career. But he internationalized it when he became vice president for Barack Obama. And his son, Hunter, who was a raging crack addict at the time, and also to a lesser extent, Joe Biden's younger brother, Jim Biden, were basically selling Joe Biden's enormous influence. I mean, he was the number one US person in these parts of the world because Barack Obama had outsourced foreign relations to his vice president. So Hunter and Uncle Jim were making millions of dollars from China and Ukraine and Russia and, Romania, Kazakhstan, you name it. And they were doing it by selling Joe Biden's influence. The money was given with the hope of favors from Joe Biden, and Joe Biden let it be known that he was involved. He used to have a saying, I was told by Devin Archer, one of Hunter Biden's friends, that Joe Biden had a saying. He would say to Hunter's clients, if you do a favor for me, you're my friend. If you do a favor for my son, you are my friend for life. So no one was in any doubt when they were handing over millions of dollars to Hunter Biden that would extract a favor from Joe Biden. And Joe also met with these clients. He met them in Beijing. He met them, invited them to breakfast at his vice presidential residence. He went to dinner in Georgetown at a restaurant called Cafe Milano a couple of times. One famous occasion was in April of 2014, and Hunter organized this dinner in a private room for his clients from Russia and Ukraine and Kazakhstan. So it was a 3-for-1 deal for Joe Biden, who, denied all until after the election when the White House finally begrudgingly said, oh, yes, Joe Biden went to that dinner, but not for any nefarious purpose, and he didn't stay for very long. He did stay. He had the entire dinner. Devin Archer was there. So, Joe Biden pretended that he wasn't involved. But I think the biggest story and the more important story is the cover-up, because the very same people in the CIA and FBI and these agencies, State Department that you just mentioned, that cabal, the blob, some of the Obama people used to call them, they are also propping up Kamala Harris. And they intervened in the 2020 election to make sure that Donald Trump did not win and that Joe Biden did win. They're motivated by the fact that Donald Trump is uncontrollable. They want to control the president. They controlled Joe Biden. They will control Kamala Harris if she's president. She's made that clear. We had the letter from the 741 or 51 senior national security folk the other day, endorsing Kamala Harris as the far more serious and capable commander-in-chief, which, is just insane. But many of those people, 9 of them, are the same people who wrote that dishonest letter back in 2020 to debunk our story and saying that the laptop was Russian disinformation, people like Leon Panetta. They are motivated by the fact that they want their agenda their foreign policy agenda, which has been so disastrous. You see the outcomes under Biden with the world on fire, Israel under siege, Russia invading Ukraine. None of that happened on Donald Trump's watch. He did not follow their agenda. He will not be controlled by them. And that's why they regard him as an existential threat.
So when you say that they're controlling the president, are you essentially saying like a sort of small town sheriff who hides your DUI as long as you do what he says? I mean, I've covered a lot of stories like that. Are you saying they basically say, look, we're going to cover up for you as long as you're on this path, or they just like Biden because he's on that path anyway? That's
a fantastic way of describing it. Yes, exactly. He was their creature anyway for a long time. Senator Joe Biden arrives in the Senate, this neophyte, knowing nothing about anything, let alone foreign policy, he won the election at the age of 29. And his sort of elevation is way beyond his abilities or talents. He had the most powerful role in the Senate, arguably chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which is very linked into the intelligence community. For a decade, he was chairman or ranking chairman. He's been their guy for a long time. And therefore, as you say, they turned a blind eye, or in fact, better than that, they gave a green light to Hunter Biden to ply his trade and make millions of dollars from China and Ukraine, Russia, etc. In fact, one of the things that's in the book that I've uncovered was the fact that Hunter Biden, before he took that $1 million a year role on the board of Burisma, the corrupt Ukrainian energy company, he was made a member of a sort of a CIA cutout. It's I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's a branch of the National Endowment for Democracy. It's the Democrat branch of that very prestigious role. He certainly was not qualified for anything like that. He was at the time, but that was his protection, and it was a signal that he was a protected person. Incredible when you think about it, the amount of protection that was given by those agencies. The CIA, in fact, sort of inserted itself into that criminal investigation in Delaware into Hunter Biden over tax fraud and money laundering and foreign agent violations. Those were the allegations. The prosecutors were summoned to Langley and were told that one particular witness was off limits. They weren't to interview him. And that witness was Kevin Morris, the Hollywood lawyer who Hunter Biden's friends or former friends had nicknamed the Sugar Brother because he was, Hunter always found these people to bankroll him. And Kevin Morris was bankrolling Hunter Biden's, I think it was $30,000 a month rental in Malibu and his Porsche payments, and as well paying back his big fines and back taxes to the IRS. To the tune of upwards of $6 million. I'm calculating it could even be as much as $10 million. The IRS investigators who became whistleblowers, they very much wanted to talk to Kevin Morris. In fact, there was an investigation that they launched with the FBI to look into whether that money could be considered donations in kind to Joe Biden's campaign, because Kevin Morris managed to pay off a lot of problems that Hunter Biden had going with his ex-wife and some other tax bills during that 2020 campaign, that if they'd blown up, as they were threatening to, his ex-wife was threatening to go to the media, that would have been really quite damaging for Joe Biden's campaign, because it would have again linked him to his son's influence peddling.
So I enjoy these apps that give you fantasy sports games. I love sports and I like fantasy sports games. There is a new one called Prize Picks, which is going to revolutionize your game day experience. Imagine this. You're watching the big game and suddenly every yard, every touchdown, every play becomes a potential win for you. That's the thrill Prize Picks brings to over 5 million active members across America. Prize Picks isn't just another fantasy app. It's a test of your sports knowledge and intuition. All you have to do is predict whether a player will go over or under their projected stats. It's very simple and it's really engaging. I mean, you get caught up into it right away. There's more too. Prize Picks is so confident in their platform that they're offering an unprecedented deal this September. Just one passing yard from Caleb Williams gets you an automatic win every football weekend. 1 yard. And for those of you who love a challenge, Prize Picks now offers the chance to win up to 100 times your money with just 4 correct picks. Now, I just got mine. They would give you the quarterback, tell you, is he going to get this many pass yards? I picked no, he wouldn't. No, he didn't. Lots of fun. So you too can download the Prize Picks app today and use code Klavan to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code Klavan, Klavan, on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. You know, we know, I mean, it's really interesting. Donald Trump made a call where he said you should investigate Joe Biden's connection with Ukraine, and he was impeached for that. So it must have been, he must have been pretty close to the bone. We see that we're now pretty deep in this war, this proxy war with the Soviets in Ukraine. Do you see a connection there, or is this just something, I mean, obviously, I'm not sure Putin would have even invaded Ukraine if we hadn't made such a mess in Afghanistan. So it's kind of hard for me to put a story, a narrative together in which all of this is a payoff. But what do you see as the connection between the money flowing into the Biden family from Ukraine for, as you say, this job that, the sinecure that Hunter had no qualifications for? What do you see as the connection between that and the situation in Ukraine today?
Well, I think that the this sort of cabal, the blob that's controlling Joe Biden, that he's following whatever they want to do, their agenda seems to be, I mean, you can't know because they're shadowy, but you can just see from the output. Their agenda seems to be regime change in Russia, and not to regard China as a particular threat when the reverse is really the case. And Joe Biden, in fact, in his sort of adult state early on, blurted out something about wanting regime change, that Putin has to go. And of course, his people, the State Department, quickly cleaned that up. But, it was as if he'd heard something around the table and just didn't have the filter available anymore to keep it to himself. So that's a pretty bizarre agenda to have, because Russia is a nuclear power, and this provocation of Russia seems to be what the blob and Joe Biden have been intent on doing with their determination to enlarge NATO, to provoke Russia for a long time, even while Putin is warning them explicitly, don't do that. If we were doing the same to you on the Mexican border, you wouldn't like it. We don't like it when you do that at our border. And yet that those warnings were ignored. And the provocation was at least used as an excuse by Vladimir Putin, who saw an opportunity, as you say, after the Biden administration, Joe Biden showed such weakness and fecklessness and incompetence with the Afghanistan withdrawal. I think that gave America's adversaries around the world some hope that this was a window of opportunity in which they could run riot and do what they like, because they were no longer afraid of or respected American might. And, this is not in America's best interest, this agenda. It was certainly not what Donald Trump was pursuing. The reason I think that the blob, that this cabal is so afraid of Donald Trump and will stop at nothing to make sure that he does not go into the White House again, is because he is the existential threat to them, not to America, not to democracy, as we keep on being told by the sort of media that's allied to the Democratic Party. No, he's an existential threat to them and to their power. When he was president, he didn't follow their agenda. He followed I guess, the sort of common sense approach of what he is, a property developer from Queens. He saw each problem, whether it was domestic or foreign, as something that he would fix in the most efficient way, just using practical common sense measures. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Under Donald Trump, peace started to break out in the Middle East. We saw the Abraham Accords. Iran was on its knees. It had no opportunity to, it was so broke that it couldn't fund these proxies to attack Israel, as happened last October 7. ISIS, remember when Donald Trump came to office as president, ISIS was committing all sorts of horrible atrocities. We kept on seeing videos of, the Jordanian pilot burned alive in a cage, all sorts of torture and beheadings of Americans. It was shocking, and he vanquished ISIS in short shrift. Putin was in his box. He didn't invade anybody, didn't invade Ukraine, Crimea, as he did under Obama and Biden. Kim Jong-un, when Donald Trump came to office, Barack Obama told him the biggest problem we have is North Korea, and they were saber-rattling and detonating nuclear missiles and doing rocket tests. And Donald Trump called Kim Jong-un little rocket man and schmoozed him and put him back in the box, and he was criticized for that, but it worked. So across the board, Donald Trump was not a foreign policy guy, but what he had was an ability not to be controlled by the people who control presidents previously and now, and in the future if Kamala Harris wins. He just applied common sense, and they hated that. So you would think it would be in America's best interests to have peace through strength. But clearly there is some sort of malign intent going on that is not in America's best interests. And I think that we should all be frightened that those same people are now very much endorsing Kamala Harris.
It's a very strange. I mean, we do fairly well know. I mean, we may not have fingerprints on it, but we know that this money that was going to Hunter was also going to Joe, right? I mean, there's no question about that.
Well, look, the Oversight Committee, James Comer, followed the money trail, and there is a small amount of evidence, and there is also a small amount of evidence on the laptop that Joe Biden was benefiting financially. And so what James Comer found was 2 checks of $250,000 each that Jim Biden, Joe's brother, through circuitous routes. I mean, his wife actually took money out of one account, put it into another, got a check, cut it, put it somewhere else. They're obviously trying to hide what was happening. But the check has written on it loan repayment, and that is what the White House maintains, that this was a loan repayment by Jim Biden after one of these deals twice. These deals worked out for them. He and Hunter got paid a lot of money. They give $250,000. Strangely enough, that was about 10%. And remember, that was that email, right. 10% for the big guy. So the $250,000 that went to Joe Biden was 10% for the big guy, but it has never been established that money was not a loan repayment. So, I have to be fair and careful about what I say about it. Certainly there was smoke there. In the laptop, there is evidence that Hunter Biden was paying for the bills for maintenance and upkeep of Joe Biden's lavish estate in Delaware, things like building retaining walls, putting in air conditioning in the little cottage there, paying for painting and new shutters, those sort of things. It's a very big and grand estate, custom-built house with a cottage on board, swimming pool, jetty, underground garage. So it's expensive to maintain. And it seems that Hunter Biden, at least we have some evidence, was paying for at least some maintenance and upkeep. Also, he was paying for a cell phone for his father, paying for that AT&T phone bill, monthly phone bill. That was pretty much all I found, apart from some evidence that there was shared financial arrangements, shared debit card. But James Comer and the Oversight Committee, despite efforts, they really never managed to find much more than those 2 checks. But I will say something else, though, that the fact that Hunter Biden and other extended family members were receiving money from these foreign sources, particularly from China, was actually beneficial to Joe Biden, of course, because he wasn't having to pay the normal, maintenance and payments that you would have to normally pay in a family. For instance, Hunter paid for his own Ivy League college tuition, and he also paid for his brother's college tuition. He complained bitterly about that. That was a gift in kind to Joe Biden. The grandchildren went to colleges and so on. Joe Biden's not ever had to put his hand in his pocket for anybody in his family, just for himself and Jill, and they certainly live a caviar lifestyle.
Yeah, and I mean, Hunter complained that he was keeping the whole thing afloat at one point. He said that,
yes.
Okay, keeping the whole family afloat. Gee, I wish I could talk to you more. We're both under a deadline here.
Yes, I'm so sorry to be...
No, that's all right. My one last question, if you can answer very quickly. And it's not just money from the Ukraine. It's also from China as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So they were...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, China. And China is the most worrying part of this, of course, because China is our greatest adversary. And Joe Biden, as president, went easy on China. He unwound a lot of the Trump era restraints on China, including an FBI program to track academics who are being bribed by China. For some reason, inexplicable, Joe Biden disbanded that. So you can only assume that from the millions of dollars that his family received from China, that compromised Joe Biden as president. Yeah. We don't have the actual smoking gun, but it's pretty logical and seems clear.
Yeah, it seems that way to me too. Miranda Devine, the book is The Big Guy, How a President and His Son Sold Out America. In spite of what the media says, there's plenty of evidence that this is true. Miranda, thank you so much for coming on. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thanks so much.
Sorry to cut that short. We're both running to catch planes, but we will be back on Friday with the Andrew Klavan Show. I hope you'll be there as well.